All right. Good evening to all of you. And thank you for joining me this evening. Appreciate your time. Let's have a very short conversation whilst I return back home. It's been a minute. In the morning, you guys missed me. Kojo, good evening to you. Ephraim, Agbovi, Efo, Leke, Meforama. Yeah, those are my people. If you don't speak the language, they'll arrest you right now. All right. So yesterday we had a very simple talk, and I made it very clear that the interview sessions have started. Very soon, most of you will be having links, will be having the opportunity to interview with some of these agencies, which then will create further or better opportunities for you to come to the United States. Okay, so just be on alert. Make sure you are checking your email every morning. Make sure you are checking your junk mails as well. Those of you who have so many subscriptions, make sure you scale it down, cut it off, and clean up your email so that when the agencies send you a request for interview, you will not miss it. Is that okay? You will not miss it. Abdullah, good evening. Mediako, good evening to you. Agnes, Uche, Madam, waiting to happen. Yes, so that is that. And also, I made mention of the fact that being early or being able to attend the meeting promptly is part of the interview. All right. The interview session is not only about the questions they'll be asking you. It is about your ability to show up early and also make sure that your internet connectivity is intact. Is that okay? It is not a recorded interview. They are going to interview you live. So your internet connectivity must be intact, and it's all part of the interview. So if you are not prompt, if you are not proactive, think beyond the problems, knowing very well that you are in Africa. You don't have access to Starlink. I mean, those of you who have money and you have Starlink, hallelujah to you. But if you don't have the Starlink connectivity, you don't have the high-speed internet connectivity, you have to make provisions for that. And nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to tell you that. You have to do it because you set up the interview date and time. So make sure you show up prepared and on time. Is that okay? With good internet connectivity. Don't just sit there and be hoping that when the internet trips, they will call you back. No, there are thousands of applicants and they may not give you the opportunity again to apply. Is that okay? They may not give you the opportunity. Now, when you get to the interview, the first part of the interview is about the initial, what we call the initial interview. It's just about yourself. All right? It's just about yourself. Most of the agencies, they have the interviews in 3 sessions or in 3 parts. Okay? They have it in 3 parts. Bonjour, monsieur. They have it in 3 parts. The initial interview, the professional interview, and the interview that will bring you here. Oh, yes, our boss. Mr. No More Wars. I salute. I salute. Welcome back to Ghana. We couldn't interact when you were here, but I believe everything went well, and I got updates from Choco. So thank you so much for all the directions and all the help you are providing to the youth. Look, a lot of people got to this page because of Mr. No More Wars. All right. A lot of people got here, and some of them are in the US. I believe they have reached out back to you because I've asked them specifically that make sure you reach back to Mr. No More Wars and tell him you made it. All right. You tell him you made it. But as much as we try to say these things, we know there are people who are very ungrateful, but your works are being recognized, and God bless you so much, sir. Thank you, and continue to help the youth and continue to keep doing what you are doing. We appreciate it. Yes, sir. So, as I was saying, the interview is in 3 sessions. Okay, and the first part is always easy to pass. You just talk about yourself, talk about the job you've been doing, your family, how long you've been teaching, who you are, what is your degree, What masters do you have? How many children do you teach in a week? How many hours do you teach in a week? All right, and all that. Then when you qualify, which most people do, but you see, yesterday, the people who reached out back to me didn't qualify. You know why? Because they made a serious mistake. They made a serious mistake. They were late, number one, to the interview, and her internet connectivity was also bad. So as much as they gave her the chance to do the interview, they have put her application on hold. Well, we don't know when they will open it. And you know, EPI, when EPI puts the application on hold, well, it is indefinite. They decide when they want to open it up for you. Is that okay? Good. But you never know. If you have the opportunity, make sure you nail it. The first one, most people normally pass because it's just about you. Why do they conduct those interviews? They want to know and they want to test if it was actually you who put in those informations. And number two, if you are really a teacher, I mean, the answers and things will definitely give you up. So those of you who are pretending to be teachers, but you are not teachers, and in fact, you are not even teaching, be careful, because when they get you, well, I don't know. I don't decide for those agencies. They may decide what to do with you. Is that okay? Because that is false representation. It means you are lying to them that you are a teacher, but you are not a teacher. Is that okay? So be careful with that. I know there is a lot of people who are not teachers who are trying to get in, and people are lying to you that they can get you in. They can create certificates for you. Oh, you went to UCC, you completed in 1944. You have been teaching for the past 45 years. Yes, they'll do all those things for you. It's a lie. Don't believe it. Because the second interview will give you up. Totally. In fact, the first one can expose you, but the second one will expose you even bigger. And in the first one, they are checking your certificates to make sure it matches what they want. All right? They are checking to make sure the subject you are teaching matches the certificate you have. So for instance, I know most of you back home, Ghana, Africa, Nigeria, near Kenya, some people, maybe you did mathematics in school. But when you got to your school, they need science teachers. So you have been teaching science for the past 6 years. But on your certificate, you did math. Okay? But when you were applying, you applied as a science teacher instead of a math teacher. So now they will say, why you are a science teacher. You have been teaching science. So why is your degree saying that you have degree in mathematics? So those discrepancies will come up. You know, it doesn't match. Recently, I put on my page the qualification from one of the agencies, that is FACES, and they were very specific. The subject you are teaching must match the degree that you have. So if you have a degree in English, it must match the subject you teach. If you have a degree in Spanish, it must match. You cannot have a degree in science and be teaching ICT. I know it is done back home. People have science degrees or mathematics degrees and they are teaching IT. So for the past 6-7 years, they have never taught any science. They have been teaching IT. You see, that will not help you here, because they want to make sure that you are actively practicing what you train for. Is that okay? So the second part of the interview, and our headmaster, a good day to you. No, you see, that's exactly what I've explained. I've explained it right now. So that is the first part. Then the second part of the interview, which is normally the professional interview, it's more intensive. So the first interview is normally 15 minutes, 10 minutes maximum. The second one is where you do like 45 minutes, close to 50 minutes, depending on whoever is interviewing you or whichever agency you are interviewing with. Okay? Some of them can spend about 50 minutes, even close to 1 hour, depending on what they want to get. This is where your knowledge about teaching is tested. Yes, your knowledge about teaching is tested here. That interview, they will ask you everything pertaining to your classroom management, to content delivery, how you deliver your lessons, how you apply technology in your classroom, what you do for disruptions, to stop disruptions in your class. How do you help, low achievers, average learners, and above average learners. All that. Is that okay? They will be asking you all these questions. And you see, it's a bigger stage to expose you as a teacher. If you are not a teacher, that is where the bigger disgrace or embarrassment is going to come from. Because number one, they need to hear certain keywords. They need to hear certain, vocabs. As a teacher, we all know that we refer to these as that. We refer to these as that. So if you're not using the right vocabulary in your interview, they will definitely know that you are not a teacher. Sometimes they will not tell you. You see, like the visa officers, they will not tell you why they are revising. They just tell you, we are sorry, you don't qualify. Is that okay? Yeah, they will just tell you, we are sorry, you don't qualify. It's unfortunate. Ask the why, because sometimes if they tell you, you go and correct it. Huh? Yeah, yeah. Sometimes they will not even tell you anything. They'll just tell you that we are sorry, you do not meet the requirements. Because they never heard you using certain teaching vocabs. You guys know the vocabs I'm talking about. So if they ask you about classroom management, you know the vocabs to use. They want to hear you talk about sitting arrangement. They want to hear you talk about proximity. They want to hear you talk about the fact that you have a classroom disciplinary rules and regulations. You have a setup for your class. They want to hear you talk about these things. They want to hear you talk about professional standards and everything. You see, it is not about how you beat the children or how you slap them. No, they don't want to hear you talk about that. That is even a no-no. They want to hear you talk about what you do as a professional, as a professional teacher. As a professional teacher. It's very, very crucial, very, very important. You take note of that. Or else you may not get the opportunity to interview with them. You see, some of the people who are interviewing you, they are not teachers. Get this clear. Some of the workers in those agencies, they are not teachers. But do you know how they can catch you? Because they have certain rubrics, what we call answer keys, or what you guys call marking scheme, or what we normally refer to as marking scheme, right? So they have a standard marking scheme they are looking at. So if you use certain words, they know that, yeah. You know that thing. You know that thing. You're talking about pedagogy, you're talking about differentiation. Because they will ask you, how will you cater for all the achieving levels or all level of students in your classroom? So your techniques and your skills must come in. That is why you talk about differentiation. I'll make sure I use small groups. I do this. And so you need to even know what you are talking about. Because a gentleman was asked just this year. He went for the interview. They asked him that, how will you help middle school students to understand math? He said, I'll use games. Then the visa officer, this wasn't even in the agency level. This was a visa officer. He has passed everything. He has gone to the visa embassy. And the visa officer said, how will you use, which kind of games do you use to help these students? And the teacher froze. Yes, I know sometimes it can happen, but look, if you are a professional teacher who is on your toe every day, these things, you cannot miss them. Because you said, I will use games to help them understand math. Okay, give me some of the examples of the games that you use. Then my brother is confused. No, you have to think on your feet. Is that okay? And because you are a practicing teacher, a practicing professional teacher for that matter, these things come to you quickly. These examples come to you quickly. It flows. It's natural. You can just use them. And remember, one thing I always tell people or teachers is that always answer your interview questions with examples. Tell us about a time where you have to deal with a student that was disrupting your class. Thank you very much. There was this time, or last week, when I was teaching statistics, this and this and this happened, and this and this and this is the way I handle it. You see? Now, the moment they ask you the question, you answer the question, then you go straight with the examples. For example, there was a student who was not understanding what I was teaching, and he has to do this, or he was disrupting, he was just making noise for nothing. And I've told him several times to stop and to pay attention, but he never listened to me. And so I have to call the disciplinary committee, or I have to speak to my assistant head of department, or I have to speak to my head of department in order for the student to be taken out of my class. So you give specific examples to support every answer you give in these interviews. You cannot just go raw. Tell us about how you manage your class. Then you go raw. Oh, me, when I come, we do A, B, C, D in the morning. Then after A, B, C, D, then we do... No. My brother, we want specifics. We want you to tell us what you do, how you do it. And please remember this. Sometimes these people, your accent is so thick and is so heavy that they don't understand it, right? But the examples, so long as they are educational and standard-based examples, they will be able to relate to these examples. And that is what will score you good points. Is that okay? That will score you good points. So make sure you answer every interview questions with good example. It should be short. Those examples should be very short, concise, and straight to the point. It should hit the point right there. No need to, sugarcoat it and try to make it look nice. No. That is why I tell teachers all the time that make sure you have so many scenarios in your mind. Yes, as a teacher, I know very well that students have been disrupting my class. I know very well that I've had situations where I taught a lesson and it didn't go well. As a teacher, I know that I've always had this situation. You see, there are situations, so almost everything, you have an example for it. Oh, for example, recently I had a student who had a hearing aid or a hearing problem. And I have to place them, I have to see them, change their sitting arrangement, bring him forward because he couldn't hear me, and blah, blah, blah. It means you are doing differentiation. How do you differentiate your lessons? It's very basic. And make sure that those who do not understand the language, they have a worksheet that is transcribed or translated to a different language for them, blah, blah, blah. Because I have said it time and time again that in the United States classroom, you are having the mixture of every kind of student you can think about. Oh yes, every kind of student. You have those on the spectrum. You have those... Look, I even have students... Okay, I don't need to mention it. You have all kinds of students you can think of. Those who are very hyperactive, those who have all kind of learning disabilities, dyslexia, whatever you can think of. They have so many learning abilities. But you see, they are not in specialized school. Oh, yeah. They are not in specialized school. They all come to you because of the policy they have here that no child is left behind. No child must be left behind, right? So they all come to you. They all come to you in the classroom, and it is your responsibility to make sure that each and every one of them is catered for in your teaching and learning process. In the delivery of your lessons, everyone is catered for. Yes. So when they ask such a question, quickly you should think about it. For example, I had a student who is short-sighted. So I have to change their sitting arrangement and make these provisions, and I did this. And most of the time when I'm writing on the board, she cannot see. So what I do is I have printed or I have typed the work that we are going to do in the classroom that day for her. So she has it to her. You are saying something. You may not have done it because we all know that it is difficult to do differentiation back home because you are teaching how many students, about 100 or 50 students at a time. You don't even have time to go and do differentiation. Me, when I was in Ghana, differentiation, I tried, but look, you cannot do proper differentiation. You understand? So, but you have to, you know it as a professional teacher, what to do. So you just have to speak to it. That's it. And you will nail the interview easily. But if you don't speak to it, they will fail you, and you don't know why they failed you. Because in all the conversation they had with you for 45 minutes, there was no mention of any educational, professionally standard words or anything. You didn't say anything that depict the fact that you are a teacher. You understand? So these are the things that some of you will have to take note of. They can ask you, how do you prepare for your lessons? What goes into your lesson preparation as a teacher? I know most of us, we will say all kind of things, but it's very basic. How do you prepare for your lesson? How do you assess your students? How do you incorporate the data, your assessment data, into your teaching and learning process? How do you use these particular data in your teaching and learning? They can ask you in it. And you see, there are questions that they can twist it, ask it in a different way. They will ask you they can ask you the same question 4 times. Yes, they can ask you the same question 4 times. It is your ability to be smart enough to decipher between what they actually want or what they don't want. So if you keep repeating yourself, you provided it means they are not getting the answer they want. That is why they are still asking you the same questions. Is that okay? So take note of that. Lesson preparation and all those things. There is another thing they normally ask. Tell us about yourself. That after that question, it becomes so normal. It's become so common. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about yourself. It's not about the fact that I am, what is the name? I am Eric Menu. I come from Denu in the Volta region. My mother is Celestine Jenny, and my father is, whose name is there? Luis. I am 5 feet tall. I like banku and okro soup. My stepfather is Amwaku, Japan. We are 15 children in number, and I'm the firstborn. Oga me. You know, be so now. Tell me about yourself. It's not about that kind of myself. Olajiro, it is not that kind of myself. Oh. Tell me about yourself has to do with you, the teacher, your professional life, who you are. How long have you been teaching? Where have you taught? What is your qualification? What makes you a qualified teacher? You are kind of blowing your personal horn, your professional horn, in a little way, in a nice, beautiful way, in a professional way. Yeah? Yes. You talk about your strengths. Don't highlight your weaknesses. Talk about your strength more. All right? Talk about your strengths more. Don't talk about don't highlight your weaknesses. It should be more about yourself. What you do best in the class. When you come to my class, I'm a teacher who is student-centered. I always make sure my students understand my lesson. And if they don't have, I have this, I do this, you know, all those things. Don't use any jargons. Don't be using any local jargons. You know, we teachers, we have some jargons we use, right? No, don't use any of those jargons. Keep it very concise. And you see, that answer, it should be at least a maximum of 1 minute, 30 seconds. Oh yes, even 1 minute should be okay. Tell me about yourself. Who is Olajiro? Olajiro, thank you, sir. I am a professional teacher or a professional mathematics teacher who have been teaching for the past 4 years, and I teach high school mathematics. I have a degree in mathematics. I have a master's in leadership and philosophy of math. I do this, I do this. That is what they want to hear. My strengths are, then you talk about it. And you see, it should be very concise and it should be a continuous sentence. Okay? It should be continuous. And this is something, because you know yourself. You are the only one who can tell others about yourself. So you are telling them about you, who you are. That way, they form a picture about who you are right there. This same question, right? This same tell us about yourself. They can ask you in a different way. They can ask you about, they can say, how will your student describe you? Are you getting it? If they ask you a question like that, how will your student describe you? In a very simple way, they are asking you, tell us about yourself. How will your student describe you? They will describe me as a teacher who is firm but fair. I am a professional teacher. I do this. I am not biased. You know, tell us, how will your students describe you? It's the same thing like, tell us about yourself. Is that okay? use adjectives that best describe you. And I keep saying, highlight the positives. Ransford, highlight the positives. Do not go and give example of any negative. They can ask you, has there been a time in your class that you taught a lesson and one student, it didn't go well? Tell us about that situation and what did you do? They can even ask you, how do you deal with parents? How do you communicate with parents? Have you ever had any confrontation with a parent? In all these, they are testing certain skills. They are testing how you communicate with stakeholders in the education and the teaching and learning process. Is that okay? So there's a lot. There's a lot. I cannot exhaust all these questions in one interview. I cannot exhaust all these questions in one interview. How do you use technology in a class? I mean, those of you who have been on this platform, you know these are common questions. How do you use technology in your classroom? How do you manage misbehavior in your classroom? How do you make teaching mathematics interesting? Whether you are teaching science or you are teaching biology, they'll ask you, how do you make it interesting? I mean, how do you, connect this with their real life? What is, so many things. So many things. Is that okay? What makes you an effective teacher? They can ask you a question like that. What makes you an effective teacher? And they can also take you to, how do you call it? Other areas in teaching and learning, right? That they can give you a scenario and they'll ask you to tell us what you would do in that scenario. For instance, you have a parent who has come to the school and very angry about the fact that the child has a D in your class. The child is failing your class. What will you do, or how will you go about it? You see, you will not say that the child has failed, so I failed them. No, you don't do that. You have to describe it appropriately. Oh my goodness. And sometimes they can ask you about the age group that you teach because they want to connect it with what you are coming to teach. So if you are on my Facebook platform, I shared it recently, where the ages and the class levels or the grade levels they must be. Is that okay? Elementary is from a certain age, middle school is for a certain age, high school is for a certain age. So if you say you are teaching elementary students, they're your students, they are 5 years old and 6 years old. They're like, then you don't teach elementary, but you say you are teaching what? High school. Oh my goodness. And those of you who don't like participating in extra curriculum activities, they can ask you, how do you incorporate extra curriculum activities in your teaching and learning process? And which extra curriculums do you even participate in? They can ask you. Is that okay? All these things are things that come, book and let's come. If you have an interview or you are preparing, brothers and sisters, don't be scared. Just book and come and let's have this conversation. I put the link there. Make sure you are clicking it. You can book for 30 minutes, you can book for 1 hour, you can book for 15 minutes, whichever one fits your budget. Let's have a conversation. Okay? Let's have a conversation because I cannot finish all these. Look, the questions are thousands and one. The scenarios are thousands and one. Oh, this traffic again. I cannot talk about all of them in one sitting. Is that okay? I cannot talk about all of them in one sitting. So come and let's have a conversation. And there is one question they will always come back and ask you. Do you have any questions for us? After every interview, it is professionally appropriate to also ask them a question. They'll ask you, do you have any question for us? At that point, then you can ask. Don't go and be asking about salary. If you ask about salary, it's your own palaver. Big Sam, good evening. Samuel Munihintu, hey, do I know you? I know this name. I'm no Munihintu. Yes, I know your father was my headmaster in Presec. I don't know if you are the one, if that is your father or you are just related to, or just a family name. I had Reverend Munihintu, who was my first headmaster in the school I was teaching in Ghana. Well, I don't know if you are the son or not. Yeah, but it's good to have you here. Haruna, assalamu alaikum, Haruna. So guys, I'll leave you here. All right, I'll leave you here, and let's do this again. It's been interesting. I mean, I just got into that interview mood all of a sudden. Look, we'll be having the hot seat videos once again. Is that okay? We'll be having the hot seat videos once again. So just get ready. If you are ready for it, have good internet, we'll do it. I have 14 students in my first grade. You have 14 students. Okay. 14 students. Good. Headmistress, do you want to join? Shall I add you? Headmistress. Oh, headmistress. Come and tell them. Come and tell them. Yeah. Come and tell them what is happening in your classroom. Please send me a request and I'll accept it. Come and tell them what is happening in your classroom. This is a headmistress who was in Ghana, and she's here and she's doing an amazing job for the school district. Those of you who have not watched her interview with me before, you should go to my page, my YouTube page. You'll see her interview right there with the headmistress, the interview with the headmistress. You can Google it. No, just go to YouTube or Facebook. You should see the interview right there. All right? All right. Okay. Any questions? Anything I need to touch on so that I can... Ike, how are you, Ike? Ike, please let me know. Let me hear from you, okay? Let me hear from you right now. All right, guys. It's been a minute. It's been a nice conversation. And I believe you took something out of this. And this was me talking all this while. Adios. Have a good evening and let's interact again, all right?